Welcome back to Time with Still Garage. I'm Jimmy, and if you're new to the channel, stop what you're doing, click like, subscribe, hit that little alert bell. Thank you, I appreciate it. Back on the Merc here, and I know you guys last week were like, why is he working on a Camaro? Well, I have to wait on parts too, so since you've been gone, I have done a few things. We got a start switch here now. Momentary start switch. Be starting the car with that. I've got a couple of fittings here, and I actually have a line for the power steering. So today the power steering tank is supposed to get here, so we need to get these two lines hooked up, and hopefully when the power steering tank gets here I can mount it and we can measure for the other lines that we need, and the power steering system will be done. The other thing that came in for power steering is I got this a little adjustable fitting right here that can be turned and converts to AN10, so that part is done. The only other fitting I need for the pump itself is an M16 1.5 AN6. And then we got some intercooler stuff showing up, intercooler pipes. I bought one of these cheap Amazon kits because I like to figure out intercooler systems with these, and then when once I figure out what I'm gonna do, I can upgrade the pipes and the couplers. Got a bunch of vacuum stuff in for the vacuum system. I just went ahead and got a whole bunch of T's, different sizes, silicone caps, because the stock GT intake manifold has got just ports all over it that I'm not using. So yeah, I want to start this thing soon. So power steering's got to get done. Intercooler system's got to get done. I did look up this VSI. I think I got a 45 millimeter wastegate on here, and I'm just going to block this port over here. This bottom port's going to go to the turbo feed, which is right here, and then this top port is open to atmosphere if you're just using wastegate spring, which right now there's a 5-pound spring in there, which is fine for starting it. I'm going to end up just putting a manual boost controller in line there. So we can start hooking up vacuum lines. I've got we've got to reference the Radium Engineering fuel regulator, and we've got to reference the Radium dampener, fuel dampener. Right now I have them both going to a Y. I can just plug both into probably this port right here, and those are good to go. Other than that, the only other vacuum in the system is the wastegate and then the blow-off valve, which I haven't installed yet. So we'll also have to weld the fitting onto the intercooler pipe for this guy, which I thought I ordered a fitting for, maybe did not. And then I've decided I'm going to get rid of this fan controller because I don't really need it. I already have a computer that does that, so because I have the ECU and the wiring already set for the Toyota ECU to kick the fans on, and I already wired in a manual bypass, I'm just going to have the Toyota ECU control the fans. Why not? Gets rid of that, gives me some more room in the engine compartment. And then I'll take that and I'll probably use it on the Camaro. But so that'll come out and just go on the part shelf. But yeah, well, let's get to work and start doing something. Oh, I also got this 3.5-inch carbide bit here because I think I'm going to cut a little hole right there, and that'll give me plenty of room for these pipes to come up like this behind the headlights. So we'll 90 out of the intercooler and then come up through the headlight floor. Anyways, that's enough talking. Let's get to working, eh? All right, I got the vacuum system for now is done. I will clean things up later, but we got caps on all the ports here. The fuel regulator's hooked up, the dampener's hooked up, wastegate's hooked up for now. I got rough cuts made for intercooler pipes here and here, and that's it for now. Oh, I also took them out while I was thinking about it. I took this line off the oil cooler and I pre-filled this with oil. It didn't even take, not even a half a quart. Okay, we got our first powering and steering attachments on right there. Okay, so now you can see them up in there. There's the pressure there sticking out on the right, and then the return back there. So we've got the M16 1.5 outlet right there, and then we've got the feed fitting on top of that. It's a new day with a fresh coffee. Let's get to work. I ordered a power steering reservoir from Summit part number 340202B. And it's this little billet power steering reservoir. It's not baffled, but the top and the bottoms come apart, and there's a fitting on the inside that's a restrictor for the return to slow the fluid down. It's a really nice piece, actually. Pretty cheap too. I think it was like 80 bucks. Pretty happy with it. The only thing I would say is it'd be nice if they had an internal baffle, but for what we need it for, it'll work just fine. And then I got this piece from DeWitt's radiator here. Man, this is for the coolant overflow, and super impressed with the quality of the, I mean, look at the welds on this thing. And they make these in all kinds of different sizes, and it was fairly cheap. It was like 60 bucks, came with mounting brackets. Definitely would order that again. Part number 32022213. This is the 2-inch by 13-inch 20-ounce version, stainless steel expansion tank. But today's objective is, first I got to get the tunes going, and then after I get the tunes going, I'm going to get that power steering reservoir mounted, tighten up the lines on the pump, and measure for lines. Because the reality is the only reason I haven't tried to fire this motor is this power steering system. So let's get the reservoir mounted. Let's get the lines ordered, and while I'm waiting on those, I can get intercooler pipes connected to this throttle body. And hopefully, in magical YouTube land, I'll be starting this thing in like a week, but for you guys, sooner than that. All right, I got the power steering mount here, 2/4 inch by 20 riv nuts. I had to flatten out the sheet metal because the Merc kind of curves, and that's the spot that I wanted. So a little, you know, metalsmith hammer and some welding pliers, and force that sheet metal to do what I wanted it to do. That's where the power steering reservoir is going to go. And if I come over here to the reservoir, it comes in pieces from Summit. There's an O-ring on the bottom, so I got some petrolatum on that, aka Vaseline. And it's really important you install this restrictor valve on the return side. And I'm going to put a little R with some yellow nail polish on that so that I remember that it's the return side. The reservoir doesn't come with fittings, which is kind of a bummer, but I'll order my own fittings. So I'm going to install this tank on there, put the cap on it, and then there's 2 little set screws that hold the reservoir in. Okay, I've measured and I've got my power steering system figured out. So please forgive the crudity of this model. It's not to scale, obviously. But here's what we're going to do. We got our reservoir here. Okay, we got our pump here, and we've got our Mercedes gear pump right here. Okay, so mechanical gear side, hydraulic pump side, reservoir side. The reservoir, unfortunately, doesn't come with AN10 fittings. It looks like it's ORB to AN6 size, and I wanted this to be a AN10 line. So I already have an AN10 fitting here, so I'm going to have to convert from whatever the reservoir fitting threads are to probably AN10, or I'll have to put an AN6 there and put an adapter on for AN10. This is going to be a 19-inch line. I'll have a 90 out of this side and a 45 into the pump. Then we're going to come out of the pump on the pressure side. We're going to have a 90-degree fitting here, AN6 female, 14 inches to a straight AN6 female into the mechanical the gear box. And then out of the gearbox, we're going to have a 90 AN6 female up to a 45 AN6 female into the back end of the reservoir. So that's the whole system. I just got to order a couple of fittings. This thing here on the 2JZ pump uses an M16 by 1.5 fitting, so I'll have to get a conversion fitting there, M16 1.5 to a male AN6. I've already converted the top side of the pump to an AN10. So I showed you guys before the factory IS300. Normally the reservoir sits right on top of the pump, so I've got a conversion fitting here that converts the reservoir input here to an AN10 out. So Power steering system is in theory designed. I just got to make my lines, order some fittings, or order the lines, whatever. And power steering system is pretty much done. So that's all I can do for now with that. So I'm going to start on the intercooler system. I already screwed up and ruined my coupler that I had already bought for this, so I have to get a new one of those. I've got a coupler coming out of the turbo, I've got the couplers for the intercooler, and I've got some cheap pipes here, so let's get to it. All right, bring it in. If this doesn't get you excited, I don't know what does. Got the whole front end off. We're doing the intercooler pipes. We got carnage everywhere. If you're a Mercedes fan and you're a purist, then this isn't the channel for you. But we did some surgery here. So rough clearance here for an intercooler pipe. There's just no other way to fit these pipes in. And those that have swapped Mercedes know what I'm talking about. But had to do some surgery here. We had to get rid of the old radiator supports that came down, and I had to cut into the seam weld here, and I'll come back through with the MIG and I'll weld that seam back up, clean this up right here, and then I'll put some seam sealer over it. But this will give us room here to get these 90s when I trim them up underneath that frame rail, and then we'll go up through the floor. The other side was a little easier. Just had to get rid of the pinch weld here. Same thing, I'll come back through and I'll weld this up, but that'll let me 90 into this 45. This is going to be real easy. This is going to be a 90 and a 90-degree joint. 45 up through behind the headlight underneath the ABS, and then a 90 into the throttle body, and I'll end up probably welding my blow-off valve, recirc valve, right here behind the radiator. Maybe even tuck it. Yeah, I'll probably go this way on the back side of this pipe, and then I'll be able to feed back into the MAF right there. So this side's going to be pretty easy too. I think we're going to have a 90, come out with a 90, up with another 45. That'll get it pretty much aligned with the turbo. And then I'll have to mess with this. I'll probably have a piece of straight pipe that comes out and then another 90 that joins that. So not too many pipes, and once I get the whole system designed, then I can come back through and make it nicer. Well, things are getting exciting around here. Check this out. We got our intercooler pipe system roughly designed. So first of all, this is a cheap garbage kit from a company that rhymes with Pokemon. I don't recommend this. What I like to do is get this cheap kit that costs like $100, because you can use it to cut it up, design your system, and then when you're done designing it, I like to order from Ace Race Parts or Vibram. But this tube is not even, first of all, the gauge of aluminum is so thin, it's really easy to ruin this pipe. And I don't know what they use to make it, but it's not actually round. And it comes full of like oil and garbage in it. I don't recommend it, but for the purposes of what I'm using it for, it's perfect, because now you can see I've kind of designed my system. I wrote 90, 45, 90, 90, 45, and I have an idea of what couplers I need. So I got my intercooler coupler. Oh, that's the other thing I was gonna say. They call them, like, they'll say 4-ply coupler, right? And then you get a good quality like Vibram coupler that's 4-ply compared to one of these. It's like night and day. So couplers are garbage. Like, I want this car to be reliable. So the intercooler couplers are good. The turbo coupler is good. And this is garbage. So I need a good 90, another good 90, and another good 90, and a good straight. So I need 1, 2, 3 90-degree couplers and 1 straight. So now I can go to Ace Race Parts or wherever you get your tubing from and order the exact pieces I need that I know are good quality. But let's check this out. So underneath the car, you can see 90 comes out, goes over, and then hits that 45 up through the inner fender. And over here, 90 comes out, hits that 45, goes up to the throttle body. You can see what it looks like from the top. Comes out, hits here. I'm gonna hide my, let me grab it so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. So we got this tile wastegate here. I think this is a 55. I don't even remember. I'd have to look it up, but I'm gonna end up welding this bad boy probably like right here. I'll have to mess with it. But on the back side of this pipe, somewhere out of the way, maybe even like that. I kind of like that right there. And then it'll recirc back over here to this behind the MAF. But the beauty is I order one coupler and I can put all these cheap couplers together, and the motor is going to be seeing the air that's actually going into the throttle body here. So I can test fire it the way that it is. And really all I need is my power steering lines, and this thing's ready to test fire. So before I spend any more money on anything, I'm gonna hook those power steering lines up, and I wanna hear this thing run. Once I hear it run, then I'll take these garbage intercooler pipes off and make a nice system, start hiding all this wiring, and start making this thing pretty again, you know, making this motor great again, if you know what I'm saying. So, I don't know, it's pretty exciting. I mean, would you just look at it? It's awesome. I love it. Okay, we've been pretty busy. Let me get you caught up. So I've got the intercooler pipe system all clamped together. Now this is a garbage setup. I need to hear the engine run. The MAP sensor air, everything's gonna get to the intake. I already know that this driver's side pipe's not gonna work. I'm gonna have to do some more clearancing in here, which means I'm probably gonna get rid of this AVS that doesn't work, but that's a future problem. Cleaned up a lot of wiring. The gauges wiring still needs to be cleaned up on this side of the house. But on the inside of the car, cleaned up all the wiring in here. Now, there's still wire sheathing that's going to be put on all this, and I have a whole bunch of excess gauge wiring stuffed in there until I get the gauges routed permanently on the outside of the car, and then I'm going to take the excess out through here, trim it, and tuck that in. But I labeled everything here in case I die. You know, the next guy will know what's going on, which next guy will be my brother, probably. But I got the starter panel wired up in here. Let's see, I can show you the gauges, I suppose. Key on, everything fires up. Now, I had a tack gauge, but it was bad right out of the box, so I've ordered another one. And I've got these turned to Mercedes orange, so they'll match the interior lights. And I even have the dimmers wired up, so when I turn the headlights on in 3, 2, 1, they dim. So we've got boost, which isn't hooked up yet, exhaust gas temperature, engine temperature, that is transmission oil temperature, engine oil pressure on the bottom. We got our wideband gauge on the right. And then we're gonna have a tack with a shift light right there. And if you're wondering, like, why did I put all old gauges in? Well, I wanna keep this car like late 90s, early 2000 car feel, like what I would have built in my 20s or in high school. I think it's cool. And that's why I kept the old school ECU. I kept the 90s motor. We've got the gauges in here. I'm even gonna put an Alpine deck back in this thing. So anyways, that's that. Now here's the deal. I am at the point where I don't really want to put any more time or money into this car until I hear the damn thing run. And I'm sure you guys just want to hear it run too. So I'm sure you guys have all been paying attention. We've had a couple hurricanes. I've had some family and friends affected by it, and it's been a rough time down there. And because of that, there's some performance companies down there that I ordered some parts from that haven't showed up. So my power steering lines aren't installed and this and that. But listen, people are missing their houses. I could care less about my parts that I ordered. They'll get here eventually, right? But I got to hear this thing run. So I don't want to put any more time into it until I hear it run. So I'm willing to sacrifice the power steering pump for a couple of seconds. Hopefully I don't burn it up, but I'm willing to do that. I don't have a blow-off valve on. We don't need that right now. And my intercooler pipe's just mocked up, but in theory, everything is wired on the motor, final wired on the motor. Like anything that makes this motor run is final wired to the car. So we should be able to just get in here and crank the thing. Now I did buy a Chapin sprayer off Amazon, which shout out to Batavia, New York, and all my family near there. Chapin sprayers made in Batavia, New York. And I just took the Chapin sprayer, I cut the hose, I put a 1/4 inch barbed fitting to a 4AN connector, and I took my oil feed off the turbo and pressurized 3 quarts of oil into the motor. So we have now got 6 quarts oil in the motor. We've only got 4 in the transmission, but I've got to get the transmission spinning so that the pump sucks the fluid out. So we don't have power steering lines, so we don't want this motor to run long. We want it to run a few seconds, hopefully build oil pressure, suck the transmission fluid up into the pump, and then we'll turn it off. Then we can put transmission fluid in the trans. We can get our power steering lines, put those on, but if I just need to hear it run. It's been 2 years. Actually, I think December is two years. December 20 something is 2 years that this car has run. So without further ado, I made you guys wait long enough. Let's see if this damn car runs. Now I got a camera running on the front of the car, I got a camera running on the back of the car, and we're gonna use my good old fashioned cell phone so that you guys can see what happens on the inside of the car. 2 years, I gotta make sure this is documented, you know what I mean? Okay, here we go. Let's get these gauges powered up. I wanna see oil pressure, but I don't want it to run long. Hell, I don't even know if it's gonna run. Let's see here. Ooh, man, my heart is, I'm scared. I feel like I'm in a haunted house or something. Okay, been waiting for this for 2 years. Give me no whammies, no whammies. Come on, here we go, no whammies. Oh, yes! It runs! It freaking runs! Oh man! Oh man, that's a good feeling. We got any crazy oil shooting out anywhere? Oh man, I wish you guys could feel my heart right now. Holy cow. Whew. There's no better feeling than that. I saw oil pressure. I had oil pressure. That's good. Man. Oh, I smell oil. It's the beautiful smell of life. Let's turn her on one more time. I got to do it again. I got to do it again. Yeah, we got residual oil pressure here. That's good news. Oh my God, that's a good feeling. Holy cow, man. Man, oh man. Wow, okay, well, I'm gonna crack that oil line off the turbo and I better have oil coming out of it. And now I gotta add transmission fluid and power steering lines, and she runs! She freaking runs, dude, I'm stoked. Okay, I'm gonna get a crescent wrench here and I'm gonna break that turbo oil line. It showed me having pressure. I better see some oil coming out of that turbo line here. I wanna smoke this turbo. Oh man, the exhaust is warm. That's so cool. Man, there's no, I'm telling you guys, if you've never built something from scratch like this, and I built this motor. I built this motor and everything. I'm just, man, I'm so stoked. So stoked. My heart's shaking, my arms are shaking. Whew. Oh yeah, there's oil. Good. Good, 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 good. Last thing we want is to burn up this very expensive turbo. We got oil, so the turbo's got oil. We don't want to kill that. That's the blood of this whole motor right here. It's useless without a turbo as far as I'm concerned. Holy cow. I wish I could. I hope you guys adequately get the feeling that I have right now when you watch this video. I cannot tell you how awesome this is. Holy cow. Okay, I guess we should lift it up and see if we got any oil on the ground or anything crazy, huh? Before I do that, I would like to kill everything. All right, car's up in the air, and dude, there's nothing on the ground. Oh God, I'm so stoked. Oh man, I cannot wait to drive this thing. Did you hear how that thing sounds? Dude, it's so cool. It's so cool, man. I'm so stoked right now. This motor sounds, man, I hope you guys can hear it in the video at home. I put a really good microphone on that camera that was by the exhaust. Let me see it here. I had this really nice Rode mic here pointed right at the exhaust, so I'm hoping you guys get the true sound of this motor, because God, it sounds, if you've never owned a 2J before, man, I think there's a reason these motors are so popular. It sounds like a damn Ferrari almost. It's just, I mean, hell, it's like half a Ferrari the way these heads are, but it's, golly. Griff, love you, buddy. I hope you like the car. I hope I stayed true to what you wanted me to do with it. He said, Jimmy, it's yours. Just do something cool with it. So I think we have. Man, that'll be it for today. I mean, after this, I think it's time that we can actually finalize the intercooler pipes and stuff and make sure the transmission works. And next episode, I think we'll start working on that transmission, make sure it actually goes in gear. And we'll get a blow-off valve welded on the intercooler pipes. We'll get rid of these junk intercooler pipes, put some good ones on there. We need a throttle cable. And we need to final wire, or we need to clean up all this wiring for these gauges that's kind of laying around in the engine compartment. And we need to put a boost sensor in the intercooler pipes. We need to put a recirc sensor, a recirc fitting back behind the MAF or after the turbo. And then it's ready to drive. Man, thank you guys for sticking in here for the last 2 years on this build. I think it's going to be worth it. I think this car is going to be nasty. And man, we're not far away from doing burnouts and power slides in a parking lot, and I'll bring you along for that. So thank you guys and gals. We'll see you next time on Time with Still Garage.